Monumental gates has always been a reflection of prosperity for kingdoms. Rulers, over the course of human civilization, have always wanted to build gigantic gates which will play a pivotal role in the security of the countrymen and also display the might of the state. Not only for military reasons, many gates have been erected to display joy, honor and in good gesture. Gates have remained a very important component of architecture in the country. All these mighty gates carry unforgettable legacy and history. The Toranas, gateways, of the great stupa of Sanchi are the oldest freestanding gateways in the country and are a true masterpiece of architecture. While the original stupa of Sanchi was commissioned by the greatest king of ancient India Ashoka, its present shape was given by Agnimitra Shunga, son of the great Shunga king Pushyamitra. Ashoka built the original brick stupa in 3rd century BC and almost a century later, Agnimitra made the present stone stupa over the original one which might have been destroyed by his father. The overlaid stupa stood to be almost double the diameter of the original one. Another addition that happened during the Shunga rule was the peripheral boundary wall around the stupa. It took another century for the first freestanding gateway of the country to be erected. The primary idea behind the gates was to show the stories from the life of Buddha to the onlookers. This change in time also created a vast difference in the style of the boundary and the gate. While the boundary wall is totally free from any inscription, the gates are full of it. The gates were made of stone but the inscription looks similar to that on timber. This was the first of its kind and the artisans followed their experience with wood. The entire body of the gateways was covered with extensive narrative sculptures. These reliefs show events in the life of Buddha but there has no order to it. This clearly indicates an involvement of various devotees in the construction of the gates. Whoever paid the money has carved their favorite events and that has made a number of repetitions of the same story from Buddha's life. It is the anachronism in Buddhism that has prevented Buddha in a human figure to be carved. He is represented by symbols related to his life. An empty throne, a riderless horse or the Bodhi tree has been used to symbolize the Lord. The gates follow a similar architectural style. All the gates are basically made of 2 straw-in square pillars with 3 horizontal architraves. Each of the base columns is capped with an extremely decorative load-bearing column capital. The capitals of Toranas of Sanchi also show improvement in terms of its architecture from the earlier capitals. While the Mauryan capitals were largely two-dimensional, the Bhurhut capitals were the first to have a decoration on all 4 sides. The Sanchi capitals are more improved and have decorative figures on 4 corners, making it stronger and more beautiful, creating a circular pattern in the plan. There are 4 column capitals which can be seen here: Lion capital, 2 sets Elephant capital and the Yaks capital. Of these, the Lion capital has more resemblance with the Bhurhut style while the Yaks capital is of completely new style. The architraves of the Toranas are rectangular beams with the wider side display. All the architraves have both its sides rounded with the word inscribed on the rounded corner. The horizontal column above the capital reduces its size but remains square and holds the architraves. On top of these columns rises the Buddhist Srivaksa design. The southern gateway was the first to be erected and after that, the northern, the eastern and the western gateway respectively followed it. Within 4 to 5 decades from the first one, the great stupa had 4 gates in 4 directions. The southern gateway architraves have an inscription on Ashoka's visit to Ramgama, Buddha's 7 incarnations and about the war over the relics of Buddha upon his death. The pillar capitals of this gate have lion, which is very similar to that of Ashoka pillar. The pillars of southern gate mostly have stories relating to Ashoka's life. The northern gate architraves have stories related to Buddha's attainment of Bodhi, overcoming the temptation of Mara, the demon. The pillar capitals of northern gate have elephant looking in 4 directions. The panels on the surfaces of the pillars are filled with various miracles performed by Buddha. The eastern gateway, the third in the chronology, is the richest in terms of the inscription on it. The architrave has stories about the great departure of Buddha when he detached himself from royal life and went to find Bodhi. The riderless horse depicts this symbolically. The column capital of this gate also has elephant, but this is different from northern gate as here the elephant is seen sidewise with the rider on top. The only surviving relic of the famous Yakshini is seen here on top of the capital and under the lower architrave. The column surfaces are again covered with various stories from the life of Buddha and his miracles. The western gate, the latest of all, on its architraves have the stories of war over Buddha's relics and the temptation of Mara. These stories have been shown in earlier gates also. The column capitals have 4 yaks facing 4 directions in a manner of supporting the architraves above. The pillars have relics from Yakka. The Toranas of Sanchi are not only significant considering its importance in the architecture of the country but also internationally. The Paifang Gateway of China, the Torii Gateway of Japan and the Hongsalyun Gateway of Korea all are derived from the style of Torana in Sanchi with modifications and improvement. Sanchi Stupa, situated in Madhya Pradesh, showcases the early narrative Buddhist art. The main structure of the stupa, Torana and the Vedika is dated between 50 BC to AD 150. The relief sculptures on the stone gateways illustrates episodes from the life and worship of the Buddha along with the inscriptions of the donors and thereby provide a glimpse onto the life, belief and structure of the period. These inscriptions inform us that traders, householders, craftsmen, guilds, queens, ministers, nuns and monks, ordinary and great men and women contributed to the construction of this monument. The Buddhist stupa formalized the burial mound in a uniquely transcendent manner. Originally built to house portions of the Buddha's cremated body, they constitute a symbolic perfection of the cosmos, wrapped around the relic of the Enlightened One laid along the axis mundi. The Sanchi stupa is surrounded by a railing which symbolically represents the walk around the cosmos, surrounded by Toranas, gates, at each of the 4 cardinal directions. The stupa is surrounded by 4 Toranas, gates on its east, west, north and south face. Each of the 4 gates represents the Buddha's world, with scenes from his life, stupas, the wheel of them, animal, including the elephant which represents plenitude as well as the rain clouds of the monsoon. Of particular interest are the bracket figures at the bottom of each 3-tiered gates. These yakshas, voluptuous and sensual, are said to represent, as well as the life force, the Buddha's mother, Maya holding onto the banyan tree during the pangs of birth. He finally emerged painlessly from her side. In the Toranas one can find continuous narratives about episodes from the life of Buddha, particularly the birth, the great renunciation, enlightenment, the first sermon at Sarnath and the parinirvana or death depicted on its panels, where the main character of the story is generally placed in the center of the panel with subsidiary figures on either side. The human figures are placed in a frontal pose, and profile is very rare. On the East Gateway the story of Buddha leaving his place has been depicted. The carvings on the Toranas are done in a very realistic manner. It is a complete open-air museum delivering an understanding of Buddhism in a wide space, very promptly and clearly, where visitors gets a chance to appreciate and learn the aesthetic and sacred sense of Buddhist art and architecture. Torana, also referred to as Vandan Malikas, is a freestanding ornamental or arched gateway for ceremonial purposes seen in the Hindu, Buddhist and Jain architecture of the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia and parts of East Asia. Chinese Paifang gateways, Japanese Torii gateways, Korean Hongsalmun gateways, and Thai Sao Ching Cha were derived from the Indian Torana. Indologist, art historian and archaeologist Percy Brown has traced the origin of Torana from the Gramadwara, village gateways, of the Vedic era, 1500 BCE 500 BCE, village which later developed as a popular adornment for cities, places, sacred shrines. According to the Vedic text, the Arthasastra, the gateways of different forms were to adorn the entrance to a city or a palace. In Mauryan Empire, the archaeological evidence shows the Torana of Sanchi Stupa dates back to 3rd century BCE. The Sanchi Torana and architecture is imitation of timber and brick construction in stone, which was popular feature in Indian architecture before 3rd century BCE. There are many different types of Toranas, such as Patra Torana, on the scrolls or gateway adornment made of leaves, Pushpa Torana, made of flowers, Ratna Torana, made of precious stones, Stambha Torana, made on pillars, Citra Torana, made of paintings, Viti Torana, adornment made on walls, such as over the wall risses or false portals and windows, could even be a specific type of wall painting, and were toranas, appended adornment over a gateway, e.g. toran, or an adorned gateways itself. These are mentioned in the medieval Indian architectural treatises. Torana is a sacred or honorific gateway in Buddhist and Hindu architecture. Its typical form is a projecting crosspiece resting on two uprights or posts. It is made of wood or stone, and the crosspiece is generally of 3 bars placed one on the top of the other. Both crosspiece and posts are usually sculpted. Toranas are associated with Buddhist stupas like the Great Stupa in Sanchi, as well as with Jain and Hindu structures, and also with several secular structures. Symbolic toranas can also be made of flowers and even leaves and hung over the doors and at entrances, particularly in western and southern India. They are believed to bring good fortune and signify auspicious and festive occasion. They can also serve didactic and narrative purposes or be erected to mark the victory of a king. Many places that were part of the Greater India and Indosphere were Indianist, as great deal of cultural exchange with India took place in ancient times. Examples of cultural and religious practices influenced by the Indian practices include Thai, Chinese, Korean, Japanese and other South Asian, East Asian and Southeast Asian cultures. For example, Benzaiten is a Japanese name for the Hindu goddess Saraswati, and the ancient Siddha script, which disappeared from India by 1200 CE, is still written by monks in Japan. Ancient Indian Tona sacred gateway architecture has influenced gateway architecture across Asia, especially where Buddhism was transmitted from India. Chinese Paifang gateways, Japanese Torii gateways, Korean Hong Salmon gateway, and Sao Ching Cha in Thailand have been derived from the Indian Torana. The functions of all are similar, but they generally differ based on their respective architectural styles. Torana Gate, Malaysia. A Torana gateway, in brickfields in Kuala Lumpur, is a gift from the Government of India to Malaysia, construction of which in design identical to the Sanchi Stupa was completed in 2015. The Torii, a gateway erected on the approach to every Shinto shrine, was derived from the Indian Torana. According to several scholars, the vast evidence shows how the Torii, both etymologically and architecturally, were originally derived from the Torana, a freestanding sacred ceremonial gateway which marks the entrance of a sacred enclosure, such as Hindu-Buddhist temple or shrine, or city. The Hong Salmon is a gate for entering a sacred place in Korea. It is arranged by 2 round poles set vertically and 2 transverse bars. It has no roof and door gate, and placed on the middle top gate there is a symbol of the Trisula and the Taijuk image. Hong Salmon is usually erected to indicate Korean Confucian sites, such as shrines, tombs, and academies such as Hyangagyeon and Seoon. Paifang in China. The Paifang, also known as a Pelu, is a traditional style of Chinese architectural arch or gateway structure. Originally derived from Indian Torana through the introduction of Buddhism to China, it has evolved into many styles and has been introduced to other East Asian countries such as Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. Sanchi is a Buddhist complex, famous for its great stupa, on a hilltop at Sanchi town in Rajasthan district of the state of Madhya Pradesh, India. It is located in 46 kilometers northeast of Bhopal, capital of Madhya Pradesh. The Great Stupa at Sanchi is one of the oldest stone structures in India, and an important monument of Indian architecture. It was originally commissioned by the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka the Great in the 3rd century BCE. Its nucleus was a simple hemispherical brick structure built over the relics of the Buddha. It was crowned by the chakra, a parasol-like structure symbolizing high rank, which was intended to honor and shelter the relics. The original construction work of this stupa was overseen by Ashoka, whose wife Devi was the daughter of a merchant of nearby Vidisha. Sanchi was also her birthplace as well as the venue of her and Ashoka's wedding. In the 1st century BCE, 4 elaborately carved toranas, ornamental gateways, and a balustrade encircling the entire structure were added. The Sanchi stupa built during Mauryan period was made of bricks. The composite flourished until the 11th century. Sanchi is the center of a region with a number of stupas, all within a few miles of Sanchi, including Satgara, 9 kilometers to the west of Sanchi, 40 stupas. The relics of Saripukra and Mahmogalana, now enshrined in the new Vihara, were unearthed there. Bhojpur, also called Moralkod, a fortified hilltop with 60 stupas, and Andher, respectively 11 kilometers and 17 kilometers southeast of Sanchi, as well as Sonari, 10 kilometers southwest of Sanchi. Further south, about 100 kilometers away, is Sarumaru. Bharhut is 300 kilometers to the northeast. Sanchi stupa is depicted on the reverse side of the Indian currency note of 200 rupees to signify its importance to Indian cultural heritage. The monuments at Sanchi today comprise a series of Buddhist monuments starting from the Mauryan Empire period, 3rd century BCE, continuing with the Gupta Empire period, 5th century CE, and ending around the 12th century CE. It is probably the best preserved group of Buddhist monuments in India. The oldest, and also the largest monument, is the Great Stupa, also called Stupa number 1, initially built under the Mauryans, and adorned with one of the pillars of Ashoka. During the following centuries, especially under the Shungas and the Satavahanas, the Great Stupa was enlarged and decorated with gates and railings, and smaller stupas were also built in the vicinity, especially Stupa number 2 and Stupa number 3. Simultaneously, various temple structures were also built, down to the Gupta Empire period and later. Altogether, Sanchi encompasses most of the evolutions of ancient Indian architecture and ancient Buddhist architecture in India, from the early stages of Buddhism and its first artistic expression, to the decline of the religion in the subcontinent. The Great Stupa at Sanchi is the oldest structure and was originally commissioned by the Emperor Ashoka the Great of the Maurya Empire in the 3rd century BCE. Its nucleus was a hemispherical brick structure built over the relics of the Buddha, with a raised terrace encompassing its base, and a railing and stone umbrella on the summit, the chhatra, a parasol-like structure symbolizing high rank. The original stupa only had about half the diameter of today's stupa, which is the result of enlargement by the Sanghas. It was covered in brick, in contrast to the stones that now cover it. According to one version of the Mahavansa, the Buddhist chronicle of Sri Lanka, Ashoka was closely connected to the region of Sanchi. When he was heir apparent and was journeying as viceroy to Ujjain, he is said to have halted at Vidisha, 10 kilometers from Sanchi, and there married the daughter of a local banker. She was called Devi and later gave Ashoka 2 sons, Ujjainiya and Mahendra, and a daughter Sanghamitra. After Ashoka's accession, Mahendra headed a Buddhist mission, sent probably under the auspices of the emperor, to Sri Lanka, and that before setting out to the island he visited his mother at Chaitiyagiri near Vidisa, thought to be Sanchi. He was lodged there in a sumptuous vihara or monastery, which she herself is said to have had erected. The gateways depict various scenes of the life of the Buddha, as well as events after his death, in particular the War of the Relics and the efforts of Emperor Ashoka to spread the Buddhist faith. The southern gateway of Stupa number 1 is thought to be oldest and main entrance to the stupa. The narrative friezes of this gateway put great emphasis on the relics of the Buddha, and on the role of Ashoka in spreading the Buddhist faith. This gateway is one of the 2 which were reconstructed by Major Cole in 1882-83. The whole of the right jamb and half of the left are new and blank, as well as the west end of the lowest architrave, the east end of the middle architrave, and the 6 vertical uprights between the architraves. The southern gateway of Stupa 1. The southern gateway of Stupa 1 is one of the 4 richly carved gateways or toranas, surrounding Stupa 1, the Great Stupa. It is the main one as it was erected in front of the steps by which the terrace was ascended. The southern gateway was also the first to be erected. Then followed, in chronological order, the northern, the eastern and the western, their succession in each case being demonstrated by the style of their carvings. It is probable, however, that not more than 3 or 4 decades intervened between the building of the southern and western gateways. A few of the surfaces of the southern gateway are undecorated or lost. Like the other gateways, The southern gateway is composed of 2 square pillars surmounted by capitals, which in their turn support a superstructure of 3 architraves with volute ends. Architraves. Some material was lost over 2000 years, and the restoration had to make up for lost elements with some blank slabs. The whole of the right jamb and half of the left are new, as well as the west end of the lowest architrave, the east end of the middle architrave, and the 6 vertical uprights between the architraves. When the gateway was restored, the top and the lowest lintels appear to have been reversed by mistake, since the more important sculptures on them now face the stupa instead of facing outwards. Front middle architrave. King Ashoka visits Ramgarhma. King Ashoka visited Ramgarhma to take relics of the Buddha from the Nagas, but he failed, the Nagas being too powerful. After the death of the Buddha, his relics were originally divided into 8 portions, and shared between 8 princes. Each of the princes constructed a stupa at or near his capital city, within which the respective portion of the ashes was enshrined. These 8 stupas were erected at Rajagriha, Vasali, Kapilvastu, Allakappa, Ramgarhma, Votthadvipa, Pava and Kushinara. About 2 centuries later, in order to spread the Buddhist faith, Asoka endeavored to gather the 8 shares of the relics to divide them up, and distribute them among 84,000 stupas, which he himself erected. He only obtained 7 of these portions. He failed to secure the relics of Ramgarhma in the Nepal Tarai, in face of the resolute opposition of their devoted guardians, the Nagas. Here, in the center of the architrave, is depicted the stupa of Ramgarhma. Above the stupa are heavenly figures bearing garlands in their hands. To the right, the Emperor Asoka is approaching in his chariot, accompanied by a retinue of elephants, horsemen and footmen, and to the left, the Nagas and Nagis, in human form with serpent hoods, worshipping at the stupa, bringing offerings, or emerging from the waters of a lotus pond. On the projecting end of this architrave is an elephant in a lotus pond with mahout and females on its back, and a second female scrambling up behind, in the background pavilion with female figures looking out. To what particular incident this relief refers, is not known. An inscription on the dome of the stupa records that the architrave was the gift of one Balamitra, pupil of Ayaksudra, the preacher of the law. Rear top architrave. The 7 Buddha. 6 Buddha of the past and Gautama Buddha, with his Bodhi tree at the extreme right. In the central section are 3 stupas alternating with 4 trees with thrones in front of them, adored by figures both human and divine. These represent the 6 Buddha of the past, namely, Vipsasi, Sikhi, Vaistsava, Kakusandha, Konagamna and Kasapa, and Gautama Buddha. 3 are symbolized by their stupas, and 4 by the trees under which each respectively attained enlightenment. The tree on the extreme right is the pipal tree of Gautama Buddha and the one next to it is the banyan tree of Kasyapa Buddha. The identification of the others is less certain. On each of the projecting ends of this lintel is a horse with attendants and royal umbrella, issuing from a city gate. Possibly it is Kantaka, the horse of Gautama, when he was going forth from the city of Kapilvastu. When the gateway was restored, this lintel, together with the bottom one, appears to have been reversed by mistake, since the more important sculptures on them now face the stupa instead of facing outwards. Rear bottom architrave. Full architrave with wings. War over the Buddha's relics. The Buddha died in Kushinagara, the capital of the Mallas, who initially tried to keep all the relics of the Buddha for themselves. A war erupted in which the chiefs of 7 other clans waged war against the Mallas of Kushinara for the possession of the Buddha's relics. In the center of the architrave, the siege of Kushinara is in progress. To right and left, the victorious chiefs are departing in chariots and on elephants, with the relics borne on the heads of the latter. The scene is carried through onto the projecting ends of the architrave, and the seated elephants on the intervening false capitals are clearly intended to be part and parcel of the northern gateway is the best preserved of all the gateways, and was the second to be erected. The numerous panels relate various events of the life of the Buddha. Only one atypical panel, right pillar, inner face top panel, shows foreigners making a dedication at the southern gateway of Stupa number 1. The northern gateway of Stupa 1. The northern gateway of Stupa 1 is one of the 4 richly carved gateways or toranas surrounding Stupa 1, the Great Stupa. The northern gateway was the second to be erected. The best preserved of all 4 gateways is the northern one, which still retains most of its ornamental figures and gives a good idea of the original appearance of all the gateways. Like the other gateways, the northern gateway is composed of 2 square pillars surmounted by capitals, which in their turn support a superstructure of 3 architraves with volute ends. Architraves. Front architraves, rear architraves. The architraves are all almost intact. They are crowned by 2 large decorated Srivatsa symbols in the round, symbols of Buddhism, as well as the remnants of a Dharmachakra, wheel of the law, at the center. The lintels have seated lions and yakshinis, also in the round, at their ends. Rear central architrave. Temptation of the Buddha with Mara and his daughters, and the demons of Mara fleeing. Towards the left end of the panel is the pipal tree at Bodh Gaya with an umbrella and streamers above, and, in front, the diamond throne, Vajrasana, of the Buddha, whereon he sat when he withstood the temptations and threats of Mara, the Satan of Buddhism, and when he attained to Buddhahood. Human and celestial beings are adoring it. The figure to the left of it is perhaps Sujata, bringing the meal which she prepared for Gautama before he began his last meditation prior to his enlightenment. Near the middle of the panel is Mara, seated on a throne with attendants around, and advancing from him towards the throne are his daughters, who sought by their blandishments to seduce Gautama from his purpose. On his other side, i.e., in the right half of the panel, are the hosts of Mara's demons, personifying the vices, the passions and the fears of mankind. The vigor and humor with which these fantastic beings are portrayed is very striking, and far more forceful than anything of the kind produced by the artists of the Greco-Buddhist art of Gandhara. Elephants facing the 4 directions decorate the top of the gateway pillars and support the architraves. They are gathered around a central pillar of square section decorated with a large flame palmet design. The capitals are flanked by a dancing yakshini under foliage. Left. The external side of the left pillar, facing the east, doesn't have narrative reliefs, but only displays Buddhist symbols as well as intricate vegetal designs. The external face is separated vertically in 3 bands, the central band consisting in a superposition of numerous flame palmets, 9 in total, and the 2 external bands consisting in a superposition of hooks holding garlands. The bottom of the pillar face has 2 footprints of the Buddha with the wheel of the law on their sole. The pillar face is crowned by a decorated Srivatsa symbol. Right. The external face on the right side has the same background decoration, with the 3 vertical bands and the superposition of flame palmets, and hooks holding garlands, but lacks the bottom and top symbols of the Buddha footprint and the decorated Srivatsa Great Miracle at Shravasti, also called Mango Tree Miracle, when the Buddha walks in the air. In the center, a mango tree with the throne of the Buddha in front, the Buddha, of course, not being illustrated. Round the Buddha is a circle of his followers bringing garlands to the tree or in attitudes of adoration. It was beneath the mango tree that, according to the Pali texts, Buddha performed the great miracle at Shravasti, when he walked in the air, and flames broke from his shoulders and streams of water from his feet. But here there is no definite indication of the miracle. In the anthropomorphic, non-aniconic, Greco-Buddhist art of Gandhara, the Buddha would simply be shown in his human form, rising slightly in the air, with flames springing from his feet and water emanating from his shoulders. Second panel. Jethavana of Shravasti, showing the 3 preferred residences of the Buddha. The Jethavana at Shravasti, showing the 3 favorite residences of the Buddha, the Gandhakuti, the Kozambakuti and the Karorikuti, with the throne of the Buddha in the front of each. The Jethavana garden was presented to the Buddha by the rich banker Anathpindika, who purchased it for as many gold pieces as would cover the surface of the ground. Hence, the foreground of the relief is shown covered with ancient Indian coins, Kashapnas, just as it is in the similar relief at Bharhuk, where the details of the coins are more in evidence. Third panel, aerial promenade of the Buddha. Presumably, the long band on top of the heads of devotees is the promenade the Buddha is walking on. The long open pavilion, mandapa, calls to mind the one at Shravasti, which is portrayed in the Bhurhuk relief. Procession of King Prasenajit of Kosla leaving Shravasti to meet the Buddha. A royal procession issuing from a city gate, probably Prasenajit of Kosla going forth from Shravasti to meet the Buddha. Fifth panel. Paradise of Indra, Nandana. The meaning of this scene, which is analogous to several others on the gateways, is not clear. Stupa number 3, it may represent the paradise of Indra, Nandana, where pleasure and passion held sway. Top panel. Visit of Indra to the Buddha in the Indrasila cave near Rajagriha. In the upper part of the panel is an artificial cave resembling in its facade many rock-cut Buddhist Chakya shrines in western and central India. In front of the door is the throne which marks the presence of the Buddha. The animals peering out from among the rocks serve to indicate the wildness of the spot. Below is the company of Indra in attitudes of worship, but which of these figures represents Indra and which his musician Panchesika who accompanied him, it is not possible to determine. Second panel, royal cortege leaving Rajagriha. A king and his royal cortege issuing from a city. As the panel on this side of the pillar relates particularly to Rajagriha, it is probable that the king is either Bimbisara or Ajatasattu, on a visit to the Buddha at the Gridhakuta hill, and that the city is Rajagriha. Bamboo garden, Venuvna, at Rajagriha, the visit of Bimbisara. The bamboo garden, Venuvna, at Rajagriha, with the throne of the Buddha in the center and devotees around. The identity of the spot is indicated by the bamboos on either side of the panel. This event refers to a visit of King Bimbisara to the Buddha. Fourth panel, Dwapala guardian deity. Positioned as it is, in the inside panel of the gateway, the deity guards